fam. So you know how I love to do these videos outside in the woods, like in my pretty spot and everything, because I just love being out there. So yeah, I tried to do this video outside a few minutes ago, and I swallowed a bug. So if you know your girl Rob's here, that is like totally no bueno. So we are inside doing this video right now, and I'm kind of still reeling from that, honestly. So yeah, like that just happened. But anyway, we'll take this little moment of levity in this video, because honestly, that's like the only moment of levity that I think there's going to be in it, because this is one of those videos that I hate to do. It's a type of video that I hate to do, because you know I love to talk recovery. And I love to bring you experience, strength, and hope, my story, things that I have felt, things that I have been through, things that I have learned, things that I think will help other people on their journey if you're suffering from substance use disorder. But at the same time, if you're also trying to help a loved one, or even if you're trying to bring up the next generation. Because let's face it, all of this information is not only important to us, but it is important to pass on to our children. I've stated before, I think in these videos, that my daughter is 14 years old, and she's going to be put in situations where she's going to have to make decisions based on peer pressure, based on social construct, based on all of those things. And I want her armed with information and knowledge and tools so that she makes the best decisions. So this is one of those knowledge videos, information videos, and it's not the prettiest information in the world, but sometimes information is scary, and sometimes it is hard to swallow. It is that pill that you don't want to take, but it's the reality and it's the truth. And knowing the truth about what is out there in this world is very important. So I always like to say that you're armed with knowledge. And basically we are fighting a war here, you know, even don't get me started on the war on drugs, but that's not the point. But as people, we are fighting a war here. So we need to make sure that we have the best tools in our toolbox that we can fight this war with. So here's some information that I think is important. And this is about 2 new drugs that are out on the street. Specifically, these have to deal with fentanyl. Now, I will qualify this by saying I personally have never taken fentanyl, so any information that I'm going to pass on about chasing the high or the highs associated are purely second knowledge or secondhand knowledge to me, but it is something that I have heard with respect to the feelings and the associations and the physical sensations with respect to these drugs. So the first one I'm going to talk about is benzodope. And as you can tell from the name, it is basically a mixture of benzodiazepines and fentanyl. Now, we first saw this mixture in the pressed pill format in what are commonly known as Xanny bars. So it's going to be what is sold through pharmaceutical methods as a Xanax bar that's usually broken apart or can be broken apart into 4 sections. But on the street, these bars or these pills are typically pressed with fentanyl. So you get a combination of the benzodiazepine as well as the fentanyl. Now, again, from what I've heard from people that have experienced this drug, the high is just something that is more euphoric. It is something that takes you out of your body more. And that is why this particular combination of drugs is so looked for, so chased, if you will. However, what we have been seeing on the street over the last year or so is fentanyl dealers will be cutting powdered forms of fentanyl with powdered forms of benzodiazepines. Now, the issue with this is, number one, a certain drug user might not necessarily know that they are getting this combination of drugs. They may be thinking that they're getting straight fentanyl, something that they have used before, something that their body is pretty much more or less associated with and is knowledgeable of and may have a certain tolerance to. But if they get a batch that's cut with the benzodiazepines and they don't know it, they may inadvertently overdose. Now, the dangerous thing, the really dangerous thing about that is that Narcan will not reverse a benzodiazepine overdose. That has to be done by EMT professionals. That has to be done by a different combination of drugs. And during the time that you may be waiting for the EMT to show up, basically what is needed at that point in time is CPR. So if you are not CPR certified, I strongly encourage and I frankly beg you to go get CPR certified immediately. Most of your senior centers, your YMCAs, your community centers, recovery centers will have classes on CPR certification. So whether or not you have addiction in your life, it is just something that is good to know. It's something that's good to be able to do, because the majority of it is just overcoming that fear to be able to perform this life-saving technique on a person. So going back to the benzo dope, what we're seeing is, like I said, fentanyl dealers cutting their fentanyl supply with the benzodiazepines in order to bulk it up, if you will, and produce that greater high that certain drug addicts will go chase. So that's one. We know basically how to counteract a benzodiazepine. If Narcan isn't working and the EMTs do show up, they will go ahead and administer the particular countermeasures that they have against sedatives, such as benzodiazepines. For the most part, like I said, we know about that. We know in the medical community how to counteract that and how to reverse a benzodiazepine overdose. The second drug that is on the street is different. And that is because, number one, it is brand spanking new. And number two, the effects are not really known on the human body with respect to the medical community. So this is called Tranq, or Tranq dope. And it's spelled T-R-A-N-Q, not that that's really important, but that is how it's spelled. But basically what this is this is a combination of a drug called Xylazine mixed in with fentanyl. And Xylazine is an animal tranquilizer. It is something that is commonly used in veterinary procedures for smaller animals such as dogs or cats or, you know, other household animals about that size. Now, y'all may have heard of PCP or angel dust, which was around in the 80s and 90s, like when I was coming up in the world. And that is a horse tranquilizer. So the dosing and situations with PCP are completely different than you see with Xylazine. Xylazine can be taken for a human body that is typically around your 100 to 200 pound range. It can be taken in a dosage that is pretty much amenable or the same type of dose that you would see in fentanyl. So about the same weight, and it is a powder form. So you can mix them together in about the same quantities or about the same mixture, if you will, to produce the same batch. So what we are seeing in the streets right now is fentanyl dealers cutting the fentanyl or the dope with Xylazine. Now, again, since Xylazine is a veterinary use pharmaceutical, it's not actually pharmaceutical, it's just a veterinary use drug, Xylazine is not measured or monitored at all by the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, or the Food and Drug Administration, sorry. So there really is no tracking of it. There is not a lot of safety measures as far as who can buy it. There's not a lot of restriction on this particular medicine. And the scary thing about it is because it is so easy to get, it is being cut in a lot of fentanyl supplies. Now, we first saw this in Philadelphia, or at least the overdoses first came to light in Philadelphia, basically on the corner of a K&A, which is Kensington and Allegheny Avenue, which is like the heart of the drug war in Philadelphia. So this is like where the worst of the situations are. And Tranq produces, again, from what I'm told, a much, much higher high, a much deeper high, euphoric, takes you out of your body, all of that stuff, than regular fentanyl does. So because of that higher high, it is being chased by active drug addicts. So the issues with Tranq, however, are the same. First of all, the first issue is the same as you see in benzodope, in the sense that Narcan will not reverse a Xylazine overdose. Because Xylazine is a sedative, remember, it is a sedative that is used in veterinary procedures, so it will shut down the regulatory systems of the body, such as breathing and blood pressure. You combine that with the fentanyl and you have the possibility, the great possibility, of an overdose. And Narcan will not reverse a Xylazine overdose. But the really scary part is, because this is a veterinary use medicine, and because we don't know and we haven't studied the effects on the human body, an EMT showing up is not necessarily going to have the right tools in their medical kit to reverse a xylazine overdose. It is extremely dangerous. It is extremely deadly. And we first saw it in Philadelphia, like I said, then it spread to New York, then it spread to Boston. Now it's all over the Northeast. And as you know, like a virus spreads throughout a body, the drug will spread throughout the entire country. So just because you haven't seen Tranq show up in your state or your neighborhood or your part of the country yet, it will come. Just like fentanyl swept through the country and knocked out everything else, Tranq xylazine is going to do the same thing. Now, one of the telltale signs that somebody is using Tranq or xylazine in addition to or instead of fentanyl is that, and this is also very scary, but xylazine used in the human body, especially through injection, causes necrosis. And what that is a cut down or an elimination of the blood supply through capillary mechanisms to the skin. So what will happen is the skin around the injection site will basically die. And you will have open sores that will not heal. You will have blistering, you will have swelling, you will have all kinds of issues, inflammation going on through the injection limb. And Tranq dope, or even just straight xylazine being used, is leading to situations where chronic users are ending up having to have full limbs amputated in the hospital. So if you thought fentanyl was scary, this shit is like super psycho scary. And especially because we don't know how to stop it. We don't know how to stop the effects. We don't know how to reverse an overdose. We just don't know anything about this in the human body because it was never meant to be used in the human body. So the main point of this video is not to scare anybody, but it is to inform people. If you hear those words, if you see those signs, this is something where, you know, an immediate intervention may be necessary. Not that I'm saying do an intervention, not that I'm saying that I'm for interventions. What I am saying is this is a higher medical grade need than straight fentanyl. And that's kind of a terrifying sentence right there in and of itself. To know that dealers that deal straight fentanyl are kind of the ones that are considered safe right now, at least in the Northeast, because of the shit that is out there. So this is one of those situations that you just need to know, because at least in my part of the country, or in the two states that I'm travel through primarily, we're seeing 10, 20, 30 overdoses happen like within a very, very small vicinity because of this crap. It is deadly, even more deadly, just ridiculously, abominably horrendous on the human body. So I just wanted to let everybody know what is going on out there. If you need more information, if you want more information, you can contact the Poison Control Hotline. You can contact SAMHSA's national hotline. They can give you information about the actuality of these drugs. And I will put in the show notes both of those national numbers so that you can find out where to get the actual correct medical information. All right, this is not one of those things that you get information, hearsay, word of mouth, or talking on the street to people. You want to make sure that you are getting the proper medical information. So I will be sure to put that information in the show notes. But basically, if you are an active addict, be safe. Don't use alone. Know where your supply is coming from. Know the truth about what you're putting in your body, even if you're still using. I'm not saying that you need to be ripped out of whatever you're doing right now, because as we all know, nobody's ready for recovery until they're ready for recovery. But if you're going to use, don't use alone. Know where your supply is coming from. Use clean needles. For God's sakes, just take care of yourself. And if you're in recovery, know the truth about what is out there. Because the saying is, we all have one more run in us, but we may not have one more recovery in us. Well, shit, at this point, with the crap that's out there, we may not have one more use in us. And I would rather be above ground than below it any damn day. So if you know somebody that is active addict, or if you know somebody that is in recovery, again, this is not to scare you. This is not to scare them. This is just an informational video because it is something that I am seeing throughout my part of the country. And if I have it here, or if I see it here, I know it's going to be everywhere pretty much. So as always, I'm around. Y'all know where to find me. I put my Facebook, my Instagram down in the show notes as well. I open myself up to questions, comments, communication at any point in time. Y'all know that this is what I do and this is what I live for. This is what I love, because basically I just want to help the world, even if it's one addict at a time. And that is my dog Jake sounding off. So I think this is my cue to go. So thank you, and everybody out there, be safe. And as always, I love you. Namaste.